There we go. Shows recording.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Are there any citizens present that would like to give a comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the August 11th minutes.
I will second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. License and permits. Renewal of application for a combination Class B beer and Class B liquor license by Billow Sports Bar and Smokehouse LLC doing business as Billow at 3112 Parmenter Street. And we have this listed, Taylor Susie Monona, Wisconsin agent. We've received a lot of communication since this last meeting, and it went to council, so we asked to have it come back to L&O because I think that some of the information we received was very pertinent and to our decision, and I wanted to make sure we've thought this all through. Anyone want to jump in on this?
I guess, I mean, I don't want to suggest that all these other issues may not have some relevance, but, you know, after the last meeting, the last L&O meeting, you know, I went back and reviewed my research of the statute and spoke with Larry about this as well. And, you know, unfortunately, I think we've sort of come to the conclusion that, you know, while all the other issues, like I said, are interesting and maybe relevant if we were considering a true renewal application, under 125.12.11b2, the statute clearly says that all alcohol licenses expire as of June 30th. And even some of Lori's communications about, you know, even processing the license, if things had gotten in, you know, like on the 29th or 30th, you know, there are also publication requirements before a license can be issued. It has to be published 15 days in advance. So there's really a lot more that needed to happen prior to June 30th. And so, you know, regardless of the whys and wherefores that this didn't get processed on a timely basis, the fact of the matter is that on June 30th, the license expired, and after that time, there was nothing to renew. So, I mean, I think really as a matter of law, we don't have any choice but to reject a renewal application and require a new application be filed. And, you know, I understand this kind of works as a harsh result, but there is case law that supports that. And I provided this information to Attorney Grobe, who's been representing Billow LLC. And in that instance, it's Williams versus City of Lake Geneva. And in that instance, there was a licensee that was getting prosecuted for essentially operating without a license. And what had happened there was that the license was issued without the 15-day advanced publication of the license. And so a new license was issued, and then a year later, the license was renewed. And after the renewal, it was discovered that this had not proceeded properly. And the court had held that even after it had been renewed again, that renewal was invalid because the issuance of the initial license was not itself valid. And on that basis, the licensee was found to be operating unlawfully without a license. And so, I mean, that's just, you know, the factual scenario is not directly on all fours here, but the point is that the law on that it's pretty strict. And even if we were to go ahead and process this as a renewal, that potentially puts the licensee at risk because, you know, the license would technically be invalid. So, you know, given that scenario, you know, I'm sure a lot of these other issues might be things that we would discuss if a new license were to be applied for. And I guess I would hope and expect that that might happen, but strictly as considering this as a renewal, I just don't think that we can. So what that means for the rest of the meeting, I don't know, but.
Jeremy, what are we at as far as counts on like quota licenses and other licenses?
So we are out of quota licenses, and Lori said there were 6 reserve available, and the Holiday Inn is on a waiting list for one of the quota licenses.
Oh, okay, so there is a waiting list.
Yes, of 1 right
Do you know what type of license? I know we're saying Hellbox will be going out. Do you know what type of license they have?
now. I don't off the top of my head.
Do either of you remember when we gave them the license, what that was?
I don't.
I wasn't around.
I don't remember what it was. If it was a quota or a reserve license, I don't remember. But I don't think it had liquor, did it?
Yes, because they specifically asked so they could have Bloody Marys, I think.
Yeah, you're right. But I don't recall whether it was.
I can contact Lori if you'd like and look into that.
Do we know of any other licenses that may be coming available?
I do not.
No, not off the top of my head.
Well, if this is definitive, I mean, I guess that's why I wanted it back, because there was a lot of stuff that was talked about, and it almost seemed like, well, this could happen, you know, but there was some of these other things regarding Taylor Stussy, and I clearly went in and removed
Right.
a liquor licensing agent when this happened, you know. The fact that it showed up at the last meeting and put this stuff was just mind-boggling, but you know, albeit the entertaining that he did show up to that last meeting, it was quite frustrating. But okay, so I guess the real fact is that they're saying that was the deadline, even though they got the check, they cashed it before that deadline. And I had communication with Lori, even telling me to get it in. That is really the tell, not the fact that the funds. Is that what you're saying, Matt?
Right. It actually has to be approved before the renewal has to be approved by the council before it expires. And I think Lori was being even more generous than frankly.
Oh, I'm sure she was, like, because she was, but there's other jurisdictions that have dealt with this differently than Middleton. So I didn't know this is your rule or if this is a hard fast, you know, state of Wisconsin rule.
Well, it is state statute. Now, you know, I would have to say that I don't know that the Department of Revenue looks over municipalities' shoulders too closely. And so, no, it wouldn't surprise me, especially in more outlying rural areas or whatnot, that maybe things are done a little bit differently and maybe.
I'm talking about Madison in general, but okay.
I would be surprised if Madison would process a renewal that was not filed until after.
No, I just thought with COVID, they've given extra consideration to extensions and things and getting things renewed. There's just a lot of other things that I wasn't expecting, but hoping for in the wake of all this. And I know you guys were not privy to a lot of that information, you know, at the last meeting. And I felt like I had a very short amount of time to discuss the other things.
Right.
So one of the things I wanted to discuss was what the real issues were with this moving forward, because a lot of decisions, I mean, this has been quite taxing on me to say the least, and my family over the last, you know, I guess getting on 16, 17 months now. But you know, this is just another thing, you know, starting back over at scratch with this. And then seeing where we were at all the while trying to make business decisions to, you know, do we open, do we not open? Do we just walk away from everything we've invested? You know, I have other companies, it's not the end of the world to me, but, you know, we have invested a lot of time, energy. If I walk away from this project, this building just doesn't get open. and it's just going to sit like that for a lot longer. And you guys see it from the outside. You guys don't even see all the transformations that have happened on the inside. And it really is amazing what we've taken this building into. So I understand where you're coming from when you look at this, but what if this is the law and there's nothing else to discuss here, I guess. But
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I think the value to having some discussion is maybe, you know, if you were considering to applying for applying for a new license, you know, would a discussion or some kind of input from L&O give you some kind of comfort level? But that assumes that, you know, given the legal situation, whether the committee wants to even get into going through all these things again, but that might be the value that I would see in maybe having some further discussion yet tonight. But certainly, like I said, I can see where everyone might feel just best to wade into those waters if and when you were to apply for a new license, because I certainly don't think that I mean, the $10,000 fee only has to be paid if we issue it. You know, that is not at risk if you simply apply for the license. But
yeah, that's not really it for me. That's more of, you know, here we are now kind of thing. Like, you know, when we were a month and a half from opening back in March when COVID hit, we just stopped everything right then. You know, we had to make decisions immediately, you know. For one, we didn't want everyone even in the building together. So working, so decisions were made, we stopped work, we had to reevaluate. And then obviously because of the establishment we were opening, it wasn't just going to be, you know, a restaurant that served alcohol. You know, we were going to be a sports bar. We didn't know if we were going to have football or sports in general. We didn't know, you know, and we can't congregate in the back like we planned for a comedy act or a band or, you know, a wedding, any of those things. So the whole business plan that we had to be completely reevaluated, only to come back and say, okay, the one good thing we have going for us is we have a lot of space there. You know, we have a lot of space. We can spread people out. People may not be able to go to the stadium and watch a game right now, but we have a big screen that, you know, we have an area that we can still let people get out of the house and you know, have a little bit of fun. So we decided to come back to that, but, you know, like you know, how long is this going to take? How long are we not going to know? Another $10,000 when I'm carrying the cost for this building already for all the time that I have, that, you know, so these things matter to me. COVID mattered a lot. I mean, I'd be open if it wasn't for COVID. I mean, we had hired a chef out of New Orleans. You know, we had a lot of things going, but everything changed at that moment. So if there's no, if there's no special consideration because of COVID and the licensing, and there's nothing that you can do because this is just a hard fact of the law, then there's not a whole lot that I can say. But it sounded like at the last meeting before this, that wasn't quite the case, you know, that it could be considered, you know, and so I just wanted to know that that's where you guys stood, and, you know, I'll have to figure out my next move after this, and, you know, and I go from here.
yeah, as I said, you know, I held open some possible of going back and really looking at it, and which I did regardless to advise. So Larry would be prepared to advise the council, and also consulted him as well. And you know, we ended up not really finding any of the wiggle room, and sort of confirmed my initial opinion that there really wasn't, you know, under the law, anything that we were going to be able to do.
Okay.
Here's where I'm at, and I'm wondering, Matt, no, they didn't have a license, but they aren't open and they weren't operating, so they weren't operating without a license at this point.
Right, correct.
And I'm wondering, you know, given the fact that Lori had given them let's get the money, and they hadn't paid it by the 29th, I think that was an I'm really trying to find a way that we can help. And right now we're trying to work with businesses that are impacted through these hard times. And I'm wondering if there's any way we can work with this business and help with getting this approved somehow or getting it renewed?
Well, the one area that I hadn't looked, I mean, it's pretty clear that for a new license that we are not allowed to just waive or repay the $10,000 fee. But one thing I have not looked into, I guess, as I sit here and think, is whether there's a way that can sort of be stretched out. I know I've come to the contrary opinion, at least with regard to the alcohol, the face alcohol license fee, but that might be worth taking a look at. I mean, as I agree. I mean, this is, well, I mean, bottom line is, regardless of all this, the city doesn't really have an interest in wanting to see this building remain
Not at
vacant
all.
and not used.
At the same time, I, as a business owner, have to follow all of the deadlines and pay things on time, no matter what.
Well, as I said, that's why I brought up that Williams case, because it was just an example of how strict these rules are deemed to be. Because, like I said, in that case, the applicant didn't have any control about whether the clerk followed through on the obligation to publish the application 15 days prior to approval. I mean, it was a deficiency in the license that was completely not the applicant's fault, yet the court held that their license was invalid. And like I said, I acknowledge that to be a harsh result, but that is the state of the law on this.
No, I own multiple businesses. I'm aware of these things, and we didn't even know in June. We didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we had everything that we had going was scrapped. We're starting back from scratch with a different plan because we just can't do the original plan we had. There's just no way. There's no way that we can, have that kind of business in there. So. There is a hybrid version of that we can. Granted, I'm carrying, every month that this goes on, I'm carrying the expenses of this, and this building itself, has had numerous problems. And I'm just not I had the siding halfway on the building. I had the contractors tear it back off because we had to do something with the substrate that they were putting it on. This is just how I run my other business, which is, I'm a general contractor, but I'm aware of that, and this was last minute. I didn't foresee this being a problem until all this information. I realized how much this application entailed, and I didn't have that information anymore. That information was held hostage by Taylor, so pretty ballsy of him to even come to the meeting or fill this out with his name in it.
I thought you'd asked him to come. I thought you asked him to come and vouch for it.
No, I did not. No, I did not.
I mean,
I asked him for the
copy of all
information. I think I laid that out in the email with my, and from my attorney. I think you saw the documentation, when he was removed from our organization.
But I mean, a copy of everything that was submitted before could have been available from the city. I mean, that's a public record.
Yeah, I called Lori right after that just to see that this was done and what had happened with this, and she was out of town right after that. So,
well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think this all boils down to I saw the letter to Taylor terminating his partnership that was sent, and it really ultimately boils down to, I think, just a mistake on your part of trusting him again.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's an enormous, has become an enormously costly mistake. But that's the other thing. It is part of what being a license holder and running these things, is kind of about. The old thing with bar owners, you either have to have somebody you can trust with your life, or you've got to be the person that does it all. And that's, That's the box.
Well, and that's the other
Make
thing
it,
is after,
it's
in his
unfortunate.
absence, this is my menu, this is my design, this is all me. So maybe I was a little bit naive to think that, a general manager could come in and take over all this. And I wasn't thinking this was going to be problem free by any stretch, but I wasn't expecting these kind of problems for sure. So, and here we are now. I can sit there and go through the whole history of it. Nobody's got time for that. And that's what I was trying to illustrate at my last meeting, that, I'm still in the process of making decisions. Every decision, like there's all these overages on this building. The owner of the building doesn't even have the funds to finish this. If I don't finish this building sits. And that's just a fact. Like it has been sitting forever. But I want to finish this. I want to see this through. It was, it was hard. It was hard when, COVID hit and we had to completely abandon everything we had worked for all this amount of time. Even now, it's very hard even getting back there, because it's not going to be exactly what we envisioned. But I do want to see this through. I love the community. I have a lot of friends in the community. I have a lot of customers in the community and my other business. And family live in the area. But I just, at this point, this is just to me another thing. Another thing piled on. So I have to take it all in. And that's the thing, is just starting the process over. You might not want to have that conversation, but it's kind of a conversation I would like to have, because I don't want to go through more of this, spend more money and then get to the end of the road and just not have a business, because you don't have that kind of business without your liquor license. So, and there would be another person, obviously, as the agent, well vetted this time, but that's where I'm at.
Hey, Jeremy, how many quota licenses are there in Middleton?
I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head. I know it's based on a calculation of population. Matt, I don't know if you know that based on our population.
Was it 7 or something like that?
Oh, there's got to be more
I
than
think
that.
more than that. Yeah.
I'm wondering, Josh, if it might.
At what time
be
it
worth,
seemed like we were talking about that number at every LNO meeting.
is it 30?
And yeah, that's something that Lori usually keeps track of, because the licenses come into her first. So I don't know.
Josh, I'm wondering if it might be worth your while to get on the waiting list for one of those licenses, and then see what happens when it comes around October, or when you're getting ready to open, and see if something happens. Because $10,000 to me is just, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I know.
It's
a new sign out front. It's a lot. I mean, it's just another thing that, in the greater scheme of thing, and this has had plenty of overages, to say the least. So hypothetically, I know Matt brought something up about stretching this out.
Yeah.
There's two different conversations. We're open, and there's funds in to take care of some of these things, or there is, getting all this on top of all the overages and everything, and and carrying the cost of the building now for the time that we have, and this, we might have to carry this till next spring. I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know when they get involved with the football season, if they're going to finish.
Right.
I might have to carry this till next spring. So there's a lot to consider. We might not even open this fall.
But it might be worthwhile then, get on that list, get on the waiting list for one of those licenses. And there's no downside to doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
But you understand that that's not really the issue. The issue is more of, we wait. I mean, like, I got, like before COVID hit, we had 13, 14 people there every day,
Right.
Then we just were kind of like kicking the can down the road for a little bit, trying to figure out what we're doing. And then now we finally got personnel back there working towards
Right.
And every day that goes by is extra, cost that I may never recoup.
Right.
And it's definitely more than $10,000 at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
that's more of my concern, guys, is that if I keep pressing this forward, I know we were, like right there, like we had to do everything right on this liquor license. And, I took that to heart. Apparently Taylor didn't, and I was not
Yeah.
aware of who I was in business with there, so.
Unfortunately, you're not unique. Every business is having to reevaluate and redo their plans and rethink their business plan. Everybody has gone
No,
through this.
I agree.
So, yeah.
I mean, do you,
Going back and reinventing the way that and rethinking the way you thought it was going to be might turn out to, you might come up with something better.
yeah, well, that's what we thought. We thought that at least we can provide something right now, and it's hard to even get out. We have space. That's the one thing we have going for us. No, I didn't think we were unique. I'm not trying to, I hope I didn't come across that way. I'm just trying to figure out, like, okay, most everybody was at that first meeting, if you guys remember it. So
Yeah.
how close we were to even getting this. I don't want to go through this process again and then fall short of it. And then, we're even in further. At this point, like, we have had those conversations, completely walking away from the project. Me and my wife, I mean, my other businesses are actually doing well, surprisingly, during COVID. And they're helping carry the cost of this, but this is just be a business decision at that point. Like, it's gone on long enough. It just feels like it,
Well, I was hoping Matt would have a better way out here. So Matt, sorry, not to put it all on you, but
Yeah, no,
I
well,
was
it's not,
optimistic.
not news I happily deliver.
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I get that. Okay, so my only option here is to reapply, right? And so if I reapply and we go back through the process again, and I don't have to pay the $10,000 until when? I mean, like, so
Well,
liquor
that's
license
something
is
we'll have
granted.
to,
Until you need the license.
That would be
right?
if you granted the liquor.
well, yeah, I mean, under the common reading of this, it's, you'd pay the $10,000, we'd approve the license, and if it's approved, you pay the $10,000 and you get the license. I'm just trying to look at the statute and see if there's any other ways we could, I mean, it's clear, we used to have a whole program where that $10,000 would essentially be reimbursed, but the legislature specifically outlawed that practice. So I'm just trying to think of whether there's any other way we could cushion that blow. And right now I don't have that answer, but so, I mean, right now I think you should just anticipate that unless, other quota licenses become available that don't carry that fee, that you'd be paying the $10,000 essentially at the time that the license is actually issued.
So when would be the next review for the license if I were to reapply?
Well,
After
is there
you
any
apply,
reason to
so-
reapply until you're ready to open?
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's the point.
So he wants,
you know,
he wants to make sure he can get a license
Yeah,
before he
I
goes
spend
through this whole
Right.
process.
there's
We
still
understand
another
that.
150 grand going into this place before we can open, and I don't want to spend it if I can
well,
get
if
it.
we
I
have
totally understand that.
6 reserve licenses now, I don't see them, with the way the economy is right now, them flying off the shelf. That's just me.
But
That's,
what I think Joshua is asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're asking us is, if you reapply, when would you be before this committee again for us to determine whether or not you get a license? Is that what you're asking? Am I
Yeah,
understanding
yeah.
correctly that you would like to have a license in hand before you make a decision on whether you go ahead or not? Or in what way, shape, or form you go ahead? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
what's going to happen tomorrow is I'm going to sit down with my crew and I'm going to probably stop work right now. Just the first thing I'm going to do while we reevaluate where we're at. Are we going to have a business at the end of this? And I need time to reevaluate while they're racking up money, on a building that's not, I don't even own. If I own the building and I could sell it, that'd be something else, but I don't. We're leasing this, and the owner's been nice enough to lower the lease payments during COVID, which has been helpful, but there's still something I got to cover and I'm not open. So I'm trying to, the quicker I can determine if I have a business, I quicker I can determine, if I'm going to keep investing in this and, moving this forward.
I think that, this is just my opinion, but your next move, have your meeting and determine how you want to proceed. And if you want to proceed with applying for the license again, we can get that back to us, to the committee fairly quickly, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, September 8th would be the next meeting. I would need it by no later than the 3rd of September to get it on the agenda.
So if you decided next week that you wanted to apply, you could be on our September agenda.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. So like, is there, you could have a ruling on September 8th and put the actual liquor license being, gotten by Billo down the road, like if we open in the spring, or is that something we have to get it right away then? You follow me?
You're saying if it's approved, when do you have to?
Yeah, as soon as it's approved, you have to get the liquor license, correct?
It sounds like
not necessarily, I guess. We'd probably have to take into account, we have our ordinance that requires opening within a certain period of time, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't sort of take up that issue preemptively. And so what I hear you saying is there a possibility we approve the license, but you don't actually come to the clerk and have it issued and pay the $10,000 until January or whenever? Is that kind of
like
what I
supposed to open? Yeah.
I think that's not totally unrealistic. I think. I think the committee we'd probably want to take that, sort of our time to open ordinance up. I don't see any reason why we can't take that issue up preemptively, and sort of maybe attach that as sort of a, not truly a condition, but an established expectation that this is not going to may not be issued until some time period where we feel comfortable, and even that circumstance, it would always come back for review before it would be invalid. But
there would have to be some kind of, because with everybody there has to be some kind of expectation on when opening is, and if we already have an ordinance,
right.
I see where we could move it, but there would still have to be an expectation somewhere of when opening would be,
right,
because that's
right.
how the last licensee for that for that building.
Are bars even allowed to be open in Middleton? Like, or in the state, like, are actual bars even opening right now? I don't even know.
Outside service?
Yeah, outside.
That's
service.
only outside, right? And
yeah. No, and I think, I think you are looking at something a little different when you're talking about starting up and opening a brand new place versus, trying to keep an existing established business alive and having that kind of service. And plus, I think, obviously, outdoor service is not something that's going to remain a real viable thing for a lot of businesses before too long if we don't get this under control. So,
but we could look at an opening date realistically then. If everything went right for you, Joshua, your realistic opening date probably is until spring of 21.
Realistically, right? Probably not. Ambitiously.
I was over at your building the other day, peeking in the windows, and I don't think that you probably. I don't see in the next couple of months anyway. Unless you get a big group.
If you want to come through for a tour, I'd be happy to give anybody a tour of the building. It's come a long way. You might have seen things because we have sinks turned upside down while we're finishing things on it. It just might look worse than this. But on the inside, I mean, my ciders can have the outside done in about 3 weeks. We got signing, we got a lot of things to do. Yeah. I mean, ambitiously 2 months. I don't want to do that. I don't like that kind of pressure. I don't, given everything that I've been through on this building, I just want to see it done right. That's all I care about at this point. But I don't want to keep seeing it done right and then not have a business at the end of it, I might not have a business at the end of it anyway. Who knows where this is, the trajectory of this? I just don't. But I do feel that, reevaluating the business plan, that there is some things we can do there that are still unique, and we still can provide a service to the community, and people can still get out and do some stuff. We talked about having movie night. We talked about, a lot of different things. We have rooms in the back that people can rent for private parties if they still want to, get out. But this is not where I started, and it takes extra time and to change everything. And I've lost my chef and I've lost my general manager. So we have started back with different people, and there's a learning curve to the whole thing. So,
well, the committee is not unsympathetic to the issues and the problems that you've had, and I think that everybody is shown a interest in trying to work with you. So, I don't know if that does you any good or not, but
it does.
We are trying to give you some support. We'd like to see something in that spot. We'd like to see something viable in that spot, and so we'd be excited to see something done. So, okay. From that standpoint, I think I can speak for the committee that we're supportive.
Okay. And I do appreciate that, because I guess that was my bigger concern, where we were at originally on the liquor licensing. Is and then you come in this last meeting and there's this whole sideshow with Taylor, and it's like, okay, what are they doing over there? So yeah. I guess that's where I was going with that. If I reapply, sure. I don't want to take this that much further and have the rug pulled off from underneath me. I'd just rather have the conversation now. If it's a no-go, if it's unlikely, these kind of things I can deal with now. I just, further down the road, they'd be harder than they already are for us.
All right.
But I think that's what we'll do is we'll, reapply, and I will get a realistic, but I think that's right, is the spring. Realistic is the spring, as far as opening.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
So should we have a motion to not take action on this, or what would be the?
Well, I think we already, do we have to have another motion because we've already denied it because of it was expired, or do we need one again?
Well, yeah, probably should. I mean, I would just have the motion to deny just based upon the legal conclusion that the license has expired and it can't be processed as a renewal.
And encourage to apply for a new license.
So if we are talking I'm sorry, if we are talking, I didn't mean to cut you off there. If we are talking the spring, I mean, how often do the regular licenses, quota licenses come available? I mean, is there like, a couple a year, or, I mean, do they rarely come available?
It's fits and starts, you never know. Sometimes a couple will become available. I mean, actually, I think it's probably been a while now since, who do we say is the Holiday Inn is on the waiting list?
Holiday Inn is on the waiting list for the full.
It seems like they've been on the waiting list for a while now. So.
That was actually relatively new. Chocolatarian surprisingly went out of business earlier this year or late last year. I think that was the last one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
okay.
Unprecedented times, and who knows,
Yeah, you might see a number of them come available.
Well, the Holiday Inn can't be more than 4 or 5 months on the waiting list, because it's the one on Highway 14.
Yep.
But I don't know what will happen with Fitzgerald's, and you'd be surprised some of the places that have the quota licenses that like some of the paint studios have quota licenses, so
yeah. Well, I do appreciate everyone's time, and you know, I'm glad you heard me out on all this stuff, and at least know where we're at over there. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay, all right. So, do we want
Okay,
to
I'll make that motion then.
I'll second.
any further discussion? Hearing none, motion carries. And we'll hope to see you back, Josh.
Okay, thanks, Locker.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Moving on to ordinances, an ordinance to create a loading zone in front of the library.
take
We
the lead
made
on
it
that one?
smaller.
I'm still not, this is at least four parking spots. If we're looking at between 22 to 26 feet per spot. The thing that I don't understand is I know they want to get books out to the curb for people, and they want to do it not just for COVID, but their parking lot is empty right now. They don't have people going into the into the library. This is just my suggestion. I would recommend half of that for 2 spots, and until we return to normal levels with the Forward Dane program, and then we'll reevaluate it.
Reevaluate it as far as
If they want to have it continue.
have it continue.
Yeah, I have a call in to Jocelyn. I called her last Friday and I haven't heard anything back. She's out of the office till tomorrow. So I tried to reach out to her to discuss different options, but I wasn't able to connect with her. I mean, we have, you know, it's not like people don't use the spots. You know, we have other things going on. Maybe not. You know, there's some historical societies, maybe it's not overrun with people, but just the fact that to take up those spots, and they have a parking lot and they have other spots, I'm just, I don't know if we would give it to any other business downtown, that many spots.
Are these, refresh my memory, are these spots for all day? What were they for specific hours?
I don't know how it was, the ordinance wasn't written that way. It just said this, that it was for,
Yeah, let me see. The hours kind of go with the section we put it in.
Okay.
So yeah, if you just look at that ordinance, it doesn't tell you. Let me see if I can.
At 105 feet to the east of the crosswalk, is that how you figured there were about 4 parking spots, Kathy?
parking spots. I
Yeah,
looked at the regular parking
Actually-
spot is 22 to 26 feet.
got it.
Yeah, but there has to be some space. We've got I got an email from Sean here that has sort of a picture of 3 cars there, and sort of a ruler laid out there. And I think there has to be some certain distance from the crosswalk before you can park.
Right, 8 feet probably.
And then,
It's 15
so
feet.
like in his
Is it
picture,
from a
50
crosswalk?
feet
50?
actually lands at the back bumper of the 3rd car.
And just while you're looking at that, I looked up that
50
ordinance.
feet from a crosswalk?
1.5.
1.5.
Oh, 15,
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, that's the Zoom problem. And just for reference, that 150411B is a 15-minute loading zone from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Monday through, every day of the week?
It would appear, yes.
Well, that's basically all day, every day. You know, there's not a lot going on downtown at this point, but I could go along with this while we're still under Forward Dane's restrictions, but I would want to revisit it again. I know they probably already have the signs already made.
And I would agree. We can revisit it afterwards. But I think during COVID that, you know, this is one of those
Right.
things that we can do that
We can do
doesn't
that.
cost us
Right.
any money that we can do.
I
So
can go along with this for
I don't
COVID.
know how we, Matt, you'll have to tell us if we can put a sunset clause in there, or can we make it a temporary permit, or, I mean, you'll have to figure out the mechanics of it, but the point is that
Well,
during this period of time.
I mean, the problem is, I mean, I think this is something that we're just going to have to kind of keep on our radar. I mean, a typical sunset clause says, you know, this expires on X date, but here we don't really know, you know, when, you know, so we could do it with this one of two ways. One, we could just kind of keep our eye on this as a committee and revisit it sometime, you know, between Jeremy and I, make sure this gets it back on the agenda sometime, or we could sunset it during some time that we guess is going to be needed, and actually require official action for it to be extended. But it seems to be a little riskier proposition than just, you know, keeping track of it and deciding ourselves when we think we ought to repeal it. But there's not really otherwise a good sunset clause to trigger, you know, what is the metric for when this goes away. I just don't know if we can define
Well,
that.
it's easy enough to bring it back to the committee and have us repeal it. I think that's an easy
Yeah, I think
process.
that's
That wouldn't be
Well, I don't feel comfortable with that, because repealing may be denied. I'd rather have it sunset and then we start over again and have them apply again. Because
so what date would we like to use?
let me call Dr. Fauci. I'll find out when the vaccine's
I bet he'd like to be able to tell you, but
Yeah.
we could do the end of the year, and then if we want to extend it.
So you're good doing it till the end of the year anyway?
Yeah.
And sunsetting it then? That's reasonable.
Number 31, 2020.
I can even put a reminder to make sure I
Put it in your calendar.
I will. I just I know that we have the downtown can get very busy, and I just and I think if this helps them during COVID, that's fine, and I would like to work with them to find a better solution if they want curbside service in the future.
I don't think it's unreasonable to put the onus on the library to keep that date in mind and come back to the committee to make sure that if that needs to be extended, that we do that.
There may be other options that would work better. Who knows? So
True.
Okay, so do we need a motion to recommend this ordinance to council with the new sunset clause?
That would be the motion we're looking for.
That's the motion you just got.
Yeah. I'll give that a second.
any further discussion? I'm happy with that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Under miscellaneous, there's an item, a discussion of suggested COVID relief for downtown businesses. And I did hear from some of the businesses on their suggestion, and I thought some of them would have to come to L&O, and if there's a way to move this forward, because we're coming on fall weather, and if there's things that we can do to help them as the weather starts turning bad, and anything we can do. And I'd listed 5 items, and Matt had given us a little feedback on them. And I was trying to find my email. So the first one we listed was expanding outdoor seating into parking spaces. Some of
Yeah, I
the,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, overall, there's two things that right now that can be done and are in our ordinances right now. Two things we can't do anything about at all. And then, well, actually three, the last one. So yeah, outdoor seating into parking spaces is just an expanded premises application. And so there's two different types of parking spaces that have been discussed. One, extending into private parking lots, and all that'd be required is just, you know, a real basic lease amendment allowing the making sure that we are satisfied that the licensee has the right to operate and control that area. And then of course we just want to see, how it's set up and that kind of stuff. But then approve an expanded premises for that area. And then for areas that are public, including parking spots that extend to the street, our sidewalk cafe ordinance, actually, if you look at the language, is more than just sidewalks. It can really expand in any public area. So,
Who I was talking to, it was part of Grapewater. They have a very small storefront and they need additional seating. Once you get, I think, and they said the perception is that it's too full and people don't want, even if there's seats, they want to be able to spread out further. And if they were able to spread out more, maybe there would be opportunities to put up some tents, like maybe some farmer market tents or something as the weather gets colder.
In a parking spot, you mean?
But I was wondering also, there's and I talked a little bit to Vinsanto, and they would like to have additional seating as well. But that's right next to the senior center, and I don't think there would be any problem. Abby, you correct me if I'm wrong, with expanding their seating out into in front of the senior center in the terrace area.
I would have to defer to Tammy Derrickson just to make sure that that doesn't impede like pedestrians getting in and out of their building for meal delivery and such. But I would think that it would be.
Yeah.
I would think it would be okay.
Their hours complement each other. The senior center is closed when they would be open. And another option I talked a little bit about is, if there's some of the, in the green, if they could use some of the seating, not the green, but the lawn area. So, and I ran this by Mike, and he was like, I don't know if he understood where I was trying to talk about the parking spots. But if we could do the whole stretch from the senior center to Parmenter, that might be a little safer. Once you have a whole continual area, instead of like just the Grapewater having something out in the parking spots. But if that whole area was blocked up for seating.
Yeah, and that might be easier to kind of demarcate too, if the businesses work together to get like bollards with some, something to kind of designate the area. That makes sense.
Behind there's a building that's across the street from Whole Foods, and there's a restaurant in there, and they've got big planters that have taken up some of the parking spots so that they can have outdoor seating. And it's very bright. And so cars aren't really as tempted to just pull in real quick.
Oh, yeah. Well, they have a lot of the planters in the City Hall lawn area. Maybe they could use some of those.
Yeah,
those are giant,
as long as
right?
they can be moved by, when they're full. That would work, because they're just temporarily being stored there.
Yeah, but if that would help, I don't think any car would get through if they. But that was just Jessica. Do you have any thoughts on that as far as like the parking downtown? If the blocking off that much space for additional sidewalk seating or outdoor seating?
I think the sidewalk part and any space in between that would be great. I guess I wasn't clear on if there was some question about actually taking the parking spots that were adjacent to that sidewalk area
Mhm.
and putting cones there, if that was part of the question also, or part of the
Mhm.
request from Nikki.
Yeah.
I know that a little bit of that has gone on with Village Green by Stonehorse Green. I just know a couple of different nights, but I'm not sure if it's been a continual thing where they've put cones in the parking spots. And I think it's more to just make sure that cars aren't parking there next to right where people are sitting. I don't see them putting tables out there in that space. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure what purpose that was, but I guess that's the other part of it. Like, was that part of the question, or was it from Nikki, or was it just expanding in that space?
Okay.
I know I've offered to Villa Dolce too. I mean, I have this whole strip in front of my shop that's not being used. But I know that one of the concerns that has come up when I've spoken to them is that they have only so much liability coverage. Like there's a demarked line where that
Mhm.
exists. So, without knowing the ins and outs of that, I don't know if that becomes an issue or not, but
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess the question was then, is it possible to do this? And the answer is yes. So I could talk further with those 3 restaurants, Louisiana's, Vinsanto's, and Grapewater, and see what we can do. And if it's a matter of extending the seating or how their insurance carriers work. But the answer to that is yes. Okay. And then the next question was to allow alcohol in the City Hall lawn area, the green space next to City Hall. And we can do that if we have an ordinance, correct?
Right, yeah, I mean, I think we'll want to make sure we recognize that as some kind of public, park or, area, because that is the key that allows us to open it to alcohol use without having a licensed operator and a licensed premises. It's one of the only few exceptions to the license requirement for public consumption. But it's still going to have to require people to bring unopened containers. I mean, it's not like we're not going to be able to just have people walking out of bars with open containers over to City Hall and hang out there.
What
it
about,
still
one thing they talked about was having a wine walk to these outdoor spots like Stonehorse Green, this spot, maybe the Terrace Avenue Pavilion, where people would go and they'd have a wine tasting in these areas. Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I guess I would think that maybe something where we'd have like, downtown business, same licensing scheme that we have for the wine walk, except have it just operate on the Stonehorse Green or also on City Hall property. And because it would still likely have to be a temporary license situation if somebody else is going to sell it, because
Right.
you have the premises taken care of, but you have to have the sale issue taken care of. But if we kind of set it up similarly, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do something like that.
Usually what they do, I think, is sell tickets ahead of time. And then then people can just go to whichever spot they want. So what's our next steps if we want to have that going? Do we have to define the space, or who does it have? It doesn't go to parks, or where does it go? What do we do next?
Well, I mean, it may depend in part on, exactly what we want this to look like, how permanent it is. I mean, if we're going to consider this to sort of be a temporary sort of thing, and I mean, maybe we don't have to have it go through parks or CLC or anything like that. This could be something L&O proposes and the council just approves. But
Okay.
I guess,
Yeah, if we go through too many
the
committees,
questions
it's
become
gonna be-
who
I like
maintains
that.
it and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
the only reason you probably want it to at least go through parks.
Well, I would be nervous about taking it to parks because it's not parkland. And so I would hope that we could make it have a sunset date of how long we're considering it a park, because I've always been nervous that when we go to put a building on it, people from the neighborhood are going to say, that's my favorite park.
I drink wine
Right.
there.
Wait a minute, that's gonna be
Wine park.
Stone Horse Pony.
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm good with that. So if the fewer people we have to get involved in this, the better. So if we
Sure.
don't have to send it to parks, because like you said, Abby, it's really not a park, and we
If it needed to go through a committee for a recommendation to LNO, it should come from CDA probably.
okay, all right,
yeah, we can have a bunch of recitals that kind of shows the temporary nature of this, and it's an effort to create a public spot to gather and recreate, but it's intended to be temporary to deal with these times, and recognize that there are probably future plans for this, that this isn't the intent to create a permanent park.
okay.
Captain Geisler, do you have any comments about this? Do you have any feelings about this?
No, so I actually ran these by the chief too, and he said, his opinion is we're in full support of whatever you guys decide and think is best for these businesses. So we're on board.
Okay.
Great.
Excellent.
So then the next step is to take this to council. Would that be right? Or
Well, if we need
CDA?
CDA.
But when will the next CDA meeting be? Because I think that if they could get a wine walk or something in this fall yet, it would be, I think, a nice for them to be able to do that.
Well, I would, if it needs to go through CDA, I would think that they would be interested in having it happen as soon as possible, which means maybe they would want to meet specially like we are.
I'd like to make a referral to CDA to look into allowing the alcohol in the City Hall lawn area. Okay.
And you want to ask for, I don't know when their next scheduled meeting is. Do you want to ask one before the next scheduled?
We don't have one scheduled, I don't think.
Not until the 10th.
The 10th.
September 10th.
Oh, September 10th? I better get that on my calendar.
We were going to try to schedule another special meeting though with the DMBA, so maybe we could have some action on that same agenda if we're able to get the meeting set up with the DMBA.
Okay, that sounds good.
That would be great, Abby, just because I'm looking at the timing and if there's any sort of publicity needed for selling tickets like we did the last time for a wine event, then we would need
As much time as possible.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we'll have that part of that. And then loosening the open container laws and the alcohol delivery laws, both not so much, huh?
No,
Looks like that's enough,
we're
Carter.
kind of stuck on
That one scared me.
Well, the question came up with Nikki at Grapewater is that, because they're classified as a bar, they can't have anyone in. She said if I could do a delivery service, it would really help her out. But if that's the way it is, if there's nothing we can do. Laws. Okay, curbside pickup spots for businesses. This one is Jessica would like to see something like this just during open business hours. And we could just.
Do you mean like a spot right in front of each store? One parking spot?
I mean, because I think we're sort of all anticipating, well, one, we have a certain amount of clientele that still relies on curbside pickup. And I think as we kind of pivot into this next season and sort of the unpredictability with it, it would be great to think, wow, we have one spot that's close by to each of our places that people can, and it only has to be through, I think most of the businesses close down here by 5. I can't imagine that much will change between now, and I think we've all sort of reduced our hours with COVID, but then it would free it up for any restaurant eating outside or any dinner pickup also. But I'm thinking, like, ideally for me, it would be one spot and it would be some sort of signage that says curbside pickup, and it would allow people to go around the block and then park if they have to. And
right. Okay. So this I will just take on and send it on when we're going over the ideas we heard back. I'll take that to council then, and we'll just make it easy for, and I like the idea of making it where you I don't know, you put a cone out saying curbside pickup for this spot, just a cone out, and then they pick it up when they're done or something.
That's
easy.
a good idea.
Something easy.
And then do you think again, through the end of the year, through the holiday shopping or whatever?
I mean, I think until, it's a hard one to predict. I think even if the problems with COVID still exist, I think we're going to see this. I've seen customers sort of ebb and flow with who's doing curbside pickup. So until it's kind of, I guess our numbers are down and people feel safer coming out. So
Sure.
ideally, past probably, I would think March, April, if that's, I don't know if that's too long, but.
I think
I'm being
whatever's needed, right?
That'd be great.
I'm wondering if we want to make it, if I don't have a good handle on how people are feeling about this, like, do you think March, April, as a business owner, just do we want to make that consistent with what we're telling the library also?
It would be nice to make everything consistent because we can always extend it, okay?
Yeah, that sounds right, Dan.
But
So do you think
otherwise, we're going to be
March-
so confused as to what we're doing.
Yeah.
So do we think March would be more realistic, the end of March for the library instead of the end of December? Can we go back and revisit that?
Well, we can do it either way. I mean, if December 31st comes and we just
And
renew
then we
it,
want to extend it. Yeah.
we just extend it.
Okay,
But we should probably keep everybody on the same time frame.
Right.
okay.
Are you concerned about it getting re-extended? There's a hesitation.
No,
Just
no,
because
no.
as speaking as a business owner, people who start to rely on picking up at the library.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch
Cutting
that.
out, Jessica. Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. I just want to make sure I wasn't still on mute. But I think if you could extend it into March, then at least you're going to have some people who are going to depend on that curbside pickup even as the weather gets colder. And so it just might be a nice natural time for it to come to an end and be reevaluated. I don't know, but I think you guys know this best, probably.
We're all making it up as we go along with this.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I was saying is if we put this out and we think the sunset should be March, I'd like to make that March for the library pickup spots as well, so,
All right. Let's make this one March. We'll revisit the library and make it March.
okay.
That sounds fair.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, even after COVID is over, it might be a really nice service for stores to be able to offer during the cold months.
Mm-hmm.
I think, some of these things that are coming about because of COVID are going to be things that stay permanent. I know there are a lot of them for me with my business. So I think that might be a really luxurious offering for Middleton
Right.
stores.
That would be great. I
And
think
people might come specially because they can do that.
Well, I think that's true. When we see, after we get to the other end of this, we're going to see some of the things that we liked and that worked. And
Exactly.
some of it stays longer. And I know
so.
Jessica has great customer service, so she would be all about so, okay, so we'll take that to the council also to the end of March.
Great idea.
Okay, all right. And
All right,
that's,
there was a little cutting in and out. Do we want to, that's for the library ordinance too then, the end of March?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Do we
Yes,
need to go
please.
back and make a new motion?
the new motion.
Yeah, probably should. And I had already
Okay.
sent the revised ordinance to Jeremy and everything.
It's already actually on the council agenda.
Well, you guys
this
are
is-
way too efficient here.
This is Katie. I will move that we extend the curbside pickup for the library till the end of March.
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then
Retract.
do we need a motion for the other one, for the other stores? I will move that we have one parking space available until 5 p.m. each day
I'd say during their business hours.
during their business hours. Thank you. From now until the end of March for,
If they choose, yeah.
pardon?
If they choose, you know.
If they
yeah.
choose to use it for curbside shopping
So,
pickup. Did I say that
are we
wrong?
looking to perhaps sort of create I mean, have these people come in, each one of them, and this is our policy under which we'll adopt an ordinance? Or are we talking about like a general ordinance, where they come in and apply to the Department of Public Works and, they approve the location and where this goes on a, case by case?
Well,
Details.
I think that we can just we'll just take this to the council then with our referral, right? Is that how we want to do it? And then we'll work it out from there?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Is that okay? I mean, see what they,
Just to clarify for what I need to get on the council agenda, what exactly do you want me to get there? Right?
what I think is going to happen at the council is we're going to have an agenda item that says businesses, COVID business ideas for helping them, and these will be just things that we have at that time. Is that what you guys think, or will each one of you?
And are we just thinking this is just the downtown businesses? But any business?
I don't think so.
Great.
There's a couple of kind of mechanical things that we need to think about, which is, are the business owners then going to be responsible for their own sign and to put a sign in that spot in the morning and take it up in the afternoon when they close? I mean, so there are a few little nuances that will have to be worked out.
And I suppose there should be some, Public Works will want to have a swing at this. I know they will. We'll have to come up with a way to mark them.
Yeah. And it will have to be the onus of the business
To put it out when they open.
owners to put it out and to get it back out of the way in time so that other businesses that need it after hours
So the after
can
hours.
use the spot.
Okay.
Could this be something and add like 15-minute curbside pickup, and then they put something over it when that's over? Like if Public Works wants a sign that's consistent with that.
Like
We
the
can
bag
let Public
over the
Works
head?
figure out the signage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Jeremy, I don't know.
Do you just want
You
me to
didn't get
put
all
this
that?
whole agenda item onto the council as a discussion item for the council agenda, just so you can discuss all of this stuff again?
Well, I don't think we have to.
We'd
Discuss
like them
open
as,
container
we'd like them as recommendations to the council.
Yeah.
Not a discussion item, but a recommendation for. So however you phrase that, we want the word recommendation in there, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Make it nice and clear.
Well, you guys will be there, so you can clarify anything I screw up.
Yep.
We'll see the agenda beforehand, Jim.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, and that concludes our list of items. Thank you. Okay, motion to
All right.
adjourn.
So
We have a-
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
All right.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
everybody.
Bye.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
All right.